disappeared. So building a world-class innovation and technology city takes money, but it takes a lot of organic factors too, which are much harder to get into and to understand. And that's what we're talking about tonight. Hangzhou has transformed itself and is on the cusp of being a really world-class city. And the purpose of this webinar is to ask real experts what is needed for Hangzhou to get over the last step. As sort of an amateur looking at this, I see a lot of luck. I look at Seattle and I say, why is Seattle successful? It's because Bill Boeing and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos happen to have grown up there. But obviously that's just a guess. So I want to turn now to some real experts who have both research expertise and real world experience to discuss their observations on what builds a world-class cosmopolitan city. First, we turn to Professor Zhang Yachin. He's the chair professor at Tsinghua University and the dean of the Intelligent Research Center, a research institute. He has served as the president of Baidu, has held many important positions at Microsoft. He's a member of the National Academy of Arts and Sciences, holds many distinguished positions. Professor Zhang, thank you very much.
Good
afternoon. Really pleasure for me to be here to join this afternoon session. And thanks a lot, thanks a lot for Hangzhou invitation. And here I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Henry for CCG for such an event, very successful. Not only a very top think tank in China, but also very influential think tank across the globe. I'm the counselor without too much contribution to CCG, but I've been the counselor for many years, and I'm proud of my working experience with CCG, discussing about talents, the very right topic. The competition, just like mentioned by the several leaders from government, is not only about competition inside China. I think the most crucial competition is not about economy, it's mainly about talents. Talents is very crucial. The foundation for the strength of a country. I would like to offer my suggestion. Because of pandemic, we are always locked in a room, like reading the books and do some thinking, especially to read historical books. Reading the books about the history of human history, there are a lot of similar stories, like 100 years, 200 years, like crossing the space and time. 100 years ago, there are several major events happened before 100 years ago. One event is mainly was about the second revolution, industrial revolution, in the middle term for electricity revolution. The first revolution is mainly about the steam, the second is mainly about electricity, the third about the computer information. Then the second round revolution is mainly about the electricity impacting all the world. The second point I would like to say is mainly about the mindset. The major, the culture. Another part is mainly about Spanish flu and the First World War. After 100 years later, we know there are new factors, but similarity compared with all these events. We are like at the beginning of the first revolution, like from the steam, electricity, the industrial revolution, and come to information and to AI. And we have novel coronavirus, like such COVID-19, like new big pandemic. No matter about the campaigns in US or in other countries, and which is a very reflection of the contradiction among all the countries. I don't think there will be like Third World War. And I hope there will be not a third time a world war. No matter Cold War or the real battlefield, I hope that will be not happening like that. If we see the past 100 years, it's at a very changing period. Our mindset, our development of the technology, economy revolution. I think that after that, the following 100 years, we will be witnessing new changes. Just like our chair Xi Jinping has mentioned, President Xi has mentioned about the changes of landscape, a lot of uncertainties, a lot of opportunities lying ahead. A second point I would like to say is that after the World War, first time, Second World War, the 100 years of changes of economy has bring a lot of changes inside of China, and also all the social changes as well. After the First World War, Second World War, America and former Soviet Union were at the same level. The economy strength, the technology, the army, military were at the same level before, after the World War. And let's look back at the past 50 years. The U.S. become the very top power in science, in technology. A former Soviet Union now tend to like not related or irrelevant. How it comes like that? It's very simple. Talents. American is totally open, attracting the most important talents, no matter universities, institutes, or enterprises. Creation, innovation. American win by talents, just like David has mentioned about the Seattle or Silicon Valley has attracted a lot of talents, open. What about Soviet Union? Totally another status. In 1950s, supposed to be Chinese students to learn in Soviet Union. Then they shut the door to Chinese talents learning in Soviet Union. Then that will be like shut the talents out of their country. So for China development, we must open first, just like the minister has mentioned, like Jing has mentioned, we need to open to the other countries. While other countries are locking, we are opening. They don't want their top talents to leave, to stay in their country. But we want to attractive to other talents. We want to let them stay in China. 50% can be guaranteed at least. Like Tsinghua University, just like Henry has mentioned about my David has introduced about myself, about in China and in USA and in Tsinghua University, and I've been through all these institutes, and I am thinking about talents, technology, and about the China situation here. And I saw a very movie of documentation about 1976 China, talking about Deng Xiaoping coming back to the political field. I like two major events. One is about technology, second about education. The first mainly about education, like Deng Xiaoping has been emphasizing. And I discovered that such a similarity about the universities. Economy's strength is very related to the universities. UK in the 19th century, 18th century, like the top ranking universities, very relevant to the strength of the economy, like the Germany, the France. The last century, the best universities were lying in US. What about the China universities? Well, we never care about the rankings like the Peking or Tsinghua, and now we discovered that is very related to the nation's strength. Maybe a little bit lagging behind. Maybe some like delay of the effect, but China want to be the power, want to be the strength. We need a university. We need such a training education center to ensure that China and all the nation's strengths, including about the local region's strengths, is very relevant. The third part I would like to put into the suggestions. I would like to say that the first point, for introduction of the talents, we saw a lot, we emphasizing on the very top academics or the very top level talents. That is crucial, of course. We need cross-border top talents. However, I think that we also need to attract like the youth, the young people. Young talents are very important. I think most talents in universities, the most emphasized, most vigorous, most productive are the young talents. In universities, like top ranking, assistant professor, just like the beginning talents, they are recruiting the graduates. They are recruiting the postgraduates, like the very best potential for the talents. For Hangzhou, I think that just like I've read some papers like to the audiences about how many academics or how many very top level authorities talents are here, but that is important. But we also need to notice that the young talents are very important, but never ignore the not so successful talents, because we also need to ensure that the major part of talents need to be taken care of. The second point talk about the entrepreneurs, like enterprises, how to recruit the talents, or the government. In USA, like government don't interfere, mainly by the market or by the enterprises themselves to do the recruitment. No matter the state governor or the mayors do not interfere about recruitment of talents. But China, totally different story. And how we can deal with such a relationship between the government as well as the enterprises, how we can ensure that distribution of talents. I would like to offer you an example. I like to drink the wine myself. I always like to drink the wine, like the factor to determine the quality of the wine, two factors, like the environment, like the soil, like the climate, like no matter the humidity or the soil or the sunshine can determine that the wine has a good quality or not. That's one factor. The geographic situation. Second is mainly about what we call the minor climate. What about the quality of the grapes? What about the technology to process that grape? Or what about sales and marketing? The two major factors to determine the quality. There are good quality, there are worse quality. In Bordeaux field, the very good quality of the wines compared with other geographic situation, very good quality. So I think that government, city building to construct such a very building, and we need to build a very micro environment. That's very important. Like each enterprise, just like each workshop for the wine producing, we also need to ensure the micro level should be also taken care of. I think that government and the municipality city should not interfere too much on the enterprise's climate. That's what we call the competition, the management, technology, as well as the core competitiveness. Each wine manufacturer are different between each other. Last point I would like to say that pandemic has changed a lot our lives and our working styles, as well as like people's talents cooperation as well has been changed a lot. Just like we have been saying, the Facebook, half of the Facebook users stayed working in the home for Facebook staff. Half of them stay at home. And for Microsoft, like half of the staff can stay at home, like forever working remotely. Working remotely at home through the Zoom team software, whether that will affect the productiveness, especially it's very amazing. We discover that such like Seattle in Microsoft, since the end of February and the beginning of the March, like almost all staff are staying at home like for half a year. Let's say about productiveness, actually it's increasing, it's growing. Like 90 team can do that, and then sales can work at home with good results. Like Amazon, like Facebook, like Google, all the tech giants, like staff are staying at home, but still with very growth of the revenue and a lot of increasing. But for the future, for recruitment and for management, and we will change the ways. Across the globe, we need to introduce and we need to recruit. For Hangzhou, we can think about the benefits, strengths, and we need to use such a veil and there will be new opportunities for Hangzhou. That's my speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Zhang. I think your concept of microclimates is an analogy that might require a lot further research and further discussion. Thank you very much. Now we turn to Professor Fu Xiaolan. She is the founding director of the Technology and Management Center for Development at Oxford University. And she has also served in many high-level positions working with the United Nations and other international agencies. She has been president of the Chinese Economic Association of Europe. So now I'd like to turn to Professor Fu. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for the kind introduction. And thanks, Professor Wang, for inviting me. I will use Chinese for the talk. Thank you. 谢谢大家好，大家下午好。
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for your invitation by Henry. And how to build a very world-class municipalities, how to build a very world-class cities, especially for the whole innovation. Cities play a very important role. The main centers of innovation align in cities, or the units are cities. It's not only a one person's discovery, it's not only one person's work. It's mainly about coordination, like the thoughts provoking between each other in the cities, including about insiders or the co-workers across the fields and all the minds put together, especially for the like hidden parts of knowledge and sharing, like between all the talents inside the city or spill over.
Proximity.
They need a lot of geographic support. The spillover effect is decreasing because of the distance of geographic situation. So today's digital technology can make us more innovative to ensure that the whole world we have shortened our distance. Even we are geographically like scores of thousands of miles away from each other, but it's different between the ties of the psychologically trust, especially as a very units of innovation that's playing a very important role, and how we can ensure to create such a platform to connect, to communicate, to co-create, co-innovate. I would like to take London, for example, because I'm here in London. And in the pandemic time, like with my family members, I'm here still in the home. Centers of a finance center and also the innovations center. The creation innovation has a lot in London, an IT center as well. Several years ago, AlphaGo is a very famous case in London, especially for the chess, the AI. The AlphaGo was a startup at that time, and then acquired by Google. At the very beginning, that was born in in London. We're starting in London, very startups in London, AlphaGo. And I would like to talk about another case, Brexit. For Brexit, all the people are talking about London, the World Finance Center, will losing the status at the heart of finance, like Franklin or Paris want to take the place of UK's. They want to turn into a new finance center. But after Brexit for 3 or 4 years, but for only hundreds, only less than 1,000 people moving from London to these places, and some companies may set headquarters in the other places, but all the talents and all the industries still stay here. Because we want to move that finance centers, it needs the whole ecosystem need to be moving to another city. All the talents, all the supporting infrastructure, the soft power and everything, the business, accountant, lawyers, and the family members, all the wives, all the children, all culture, the language, and all need to be taken care of. Like, come to be frankly, all the other cities, like they can hardly to be like London. It's about totally ecosystem instead of just like one factor. So I think that London can be withholding or such a very impact by Brexit, but because we have complete system of finance environment as well as a very ecosystem to ensure that talents can stay, a very complete, clear rules, transparency in London, open, especially protection of intellectual properties, environment, the regimes, hundreds of years accumulation of improvement by the capitalism. I think that is a factor that makes London a very famous center for finance center, innovation center, creative industry, as well as for IT centers. The whole market, whole supporting factors are very related in London. The very conclusion we can draw from that, the cities is that no matter for country or for detailed part, the centers of innovation and creation, the very crucial factors are like the reason it become the world-class level of innovation centers has something to do with ecosystem. It's not about the talents only. It's about the all ecosystem, about what support the talents, and culture, education, family members, and everything are very relevant. To build a world-class city, we think we need to complete the system, open, transparency. The soft part is very important. The soft transparency. Different industry have different rules. Like IT need to have agile system, but for finance need to have very strict regulations, and also to assure that environment to be upgraded. Three key points, like the 4 priorities, and my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Fu. Your point about London is a very important point about how difficult it is either to move an ecosystem or to create a new ecosystem. That's a key point for further discussion. Thank you. Now we turn to Professor Bruno Lavine. He's the Executive Director for Global Indices at INSEAD, the business school. He has also been previously the Executive Director of INSEAD's eLab. He's done a lot of work in Paris and in Singapore and Abu Dhabi. He's also worked for the for the World Bank, doing a lot of work on e-strategies. So we're very interested in learning the main conclusions of your research, Professor Lavine.
Thank you very much, David. I would like to start where Professor Fu just left us, that is underlining the importance of the ecosystem. The future will be made of three pillars: technology, innovation, and talent. And all of those will be wrapped in a combination of governance and leadership. That's my vision of the future. And being future ready means that you can foster each and every one of the elements of that ecosystem. But today, we are focusing on talent. So let me say a few words on talent, and I will try in the next 5 minutes to develop 3 points. Number one, it is cities rather than countries that have become the real talent magnets around the world. Point number two, talent competition has become a tenet of urban strategies, in particular around smart cities. And number three, Hangzhou can be a perfect example of what will happen next in the city's talents equation. So let me start very quickly with the point number one. Why can we say that cities are becoming the hubs for talent rather than countries? Of course, we have to keep in mind the size. When we are talking of a city like Hangzhou, we are talking of a city which has the size in terms of population of the whole of Switzerland. So whether you address a population of 6-7 million within a city or whether a country responds to the same predicaments and has the same constraints. But we are not anymore where we were, let's say, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, if, let's say, a US company based in Texas would say, we need to expand in China. And then the CEO would invite his current CFO to say, are you ready to lead our expansion in China? You need to move there for a few years. The answer would have been yes or no, or what is the package, or whatever. Now, the answer is a set of questions. Where in China? Are you sending me to Shanghai, to Beijing, to Chongqing, to another more remote area? The granularity has increased. And what we see in terms of the most innovative talent strategies are indeed city-based. We should not forget that by year 2050, 2.5 billion additional people will be living in cities worldwide. And most of that growth will happen in China. So we are doing with a number of partners, we've been doing that for the last 8 years. We're trying to benchmark, to measure how talent competitiveness is moving around the world. And this is what we do through the Global Talent Competitiveness Index, which ranks more than 120 countries. We presented the last edition last January in Davos. And what we see from that analysis, which we have taken to the level of cities as well. Over the last few years, we have a special section in GTCI which deals with cities. And what we see in terms of countries first is that the champions right now in terms of talent competitiveness are Switzerland, followed by the US, Singapore, Sweden, and Denmark. China is 46 in that list. What can we conclude from that first snapshot at rankings? Well, first we see a lot of small countries. Switzerland, Singapore, Sweden, Denmark, they're all the size that is approximately that of Hangzhou. Second, we see that, as Professor Fu said before, there are advantages which have been developed over several hundred years, which are not easily replicated. They have to do with the presence of major universities. They have to do with the existence of a dynamic ecosystem around innovation, technology, or specific sectors like banking. This cannot be replicated easily and overnight. Yet, we see the role that cities are playing in terms of creating new comparative advantages. And this is my second point. Talent competition is becoming a tenet of urban strategies, in particular around smart cities. I would like to mention here another index which I've created a few years ago, which is the Smart City Index, where we see a number of Chinese cities emerging, and we also see a number of new issues coming up. Most of these cities have a strategy of becoming cosmopolitan, or becoming livable and lovable cities. The quality of life is critically important, but so is, access to technology, access to services, ability to develop a career and seize job opportunities in a globalized context. On the size of GCTCI, that is the talent index we have developed, we cover 170 cities. On the side of the smart cities, we cover 109 smart cities. This is a very small sample compared to the number of cities around the world, but it allows us to draw a number of conclusions. Number one, the quality of life, which includes good air quality, uncongested traffic, are critically important. Access to health and education are part of the quality of life. Symbolically, we see Amsterdam and Copenhagen competing to see what is the world champion of the number of bicycles compared to the number of inhabitants. This is more than symbolic. It is the translation of an accent on some aspect of mobility, which have to do with quality of life. Number two, good connectivity, typically broadband access, soon 5G, are critically important. And COVID, as Professor Fu mentioned, has accelerated that trend. A third element is an overall friendly environment for expatriates and investors. London, as we heard also from Professor Chu, has a tradition of business facilitation and making things very transparent and easy to navigate for established entrepreneurs and for startups. And last but not least, the role of leadership that is able to generate support and engagement across all layers of local societies is critically important. All these elements are going to be accelerated in a post-COVID world. I would like just to flag one element, which I don't have time to discuss here, which is that cities are the natural test beds for artificial intelligence solutions. We are still very much in the area of testing, of experimenting with AI. It is much easier to do that at city level than it is at national level. So what does this all mean for a city like Hangzhou? Hangzhou ranks 67 in the GCTCI, the talent index, which makes it the highest ranked Chinese after Shanghai, which is 32nd, and Beijing, which is 35, ahead of other mega cities in China, such as Nanjing, 75, or even Shenzhen, 78. In the Smart City Index, Hangzhou also ranks. It ranks 55, and is doing there better than Shanghai and Beijing, two cities which are respectively 81st and 82nd in the Smart City Index. So Hangzhou definitely has a number of critical assets in her hand. And I would like to finish to point at 4 areas, looking at these indices, which could be the basis for a strategy to make Hangzhou a worldwide competitive talent hub. Number one, build on Hangzhou's strengths. The importance is to go beyond the indices. For instance, Hangzhou is the host of some 15 universities. These universities rank particularly high in electrical engineering and in chemistry, for instance. This is an asset that needs to be built on. Second, build on a Hangzhou brand. People need to know, talent need to know around the world where Hangzhou is, what it is famous for. Build on local culture. Never be ashamed of your own culture. This is your main asset. So of course you want to be cosmopolitan. You want people to feel comfortable. You want, like in Amsterdam, I'm struck when I go to Amsterdam, I can go anywhere on the streets. People are very proud of being Dutch people. But you talk to the tram driver, and the tram driver will speak English. So this is how to be both proud of one's roots and to contribute to the branding of a city. Another example I would like to quote is a much smaller city, which is Bilbao in Spain. And Bilbao has been doing a number of very successful things about talent. And when you ask the city mayor or other people what has been the most efficient measure that has been taken in Bilbao that has attracted talent, they all say it's the Guggenheim Museum, because the Guggenheim Museum has become a label for the city and has made it famous. So it would be worth thinking of what can help build the Hangzhou brand around the world. The third avenue is to encourage brain circulation. And we heard that from Professor Zhao in his introduction. The talent works both ways. You want to attract talent and you want your own talent to acquire skills abroad. So that's brain circulation, and combining the three pillars of the GTCI, which are grow, attract, and retain, is clearly vital in that area. And last but not least, events like the one we are participating in today are critically important to acquire knowledge from the best cities around the world, whether they are smart or not. Every single city around the world has lessons to share, and developing international cooperation beyond national borders is critical for the success of any kind of hub talent. Thank you for your attention. This is what I wanted to say for the time being.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Lavine. I've been enjoying watching your videos on innovation, your YouTube videos on innovation the last couple of days. So I'm interested in hearing your observations here. The phrase that really struck me is the phrase livable and lovable cities. That's a really key thing for people to think about. I would like to make one quick point is Frank Gehry's got enough business and China's got a lot of great architects. So if the city of Hangzhou is thinking about building a museum, maybe look to local talent. Now we turn to Professor Liu Hong. He comes to us from a city which has been fantastically successful at innovating and building itself up, totally unexpected, in a way that would have been totally unexpected 60 or 70 years ago. Professor Liu is the chair professor of public policy and global affairs and director of the Nanyang Center for Public Administration at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. Professor Liu.
Thank you, David, for your kind introduction. 尊敬的王会长，尊敬的杭州市领导，各位嘉宾，大家下午好。
Distinguished Henry, distinguished all the leaders in Hangzhou, good afternoon. Really honored for me to be here to join in such an event. And last time I joined in the Chongqing, and with Henry and with all the other experts, we were discussing about how we can facilitate the construction of talents in China. And today is mainly centered on building the city and about the competitiveness of talents in Hangzhou. I think that's very significant. From three aspects I would like to share with you. First, mainly about Singapore experience, about the talents, especially for international talents, very important. Second, during the whole process, technology, education is very important. How we can ensure that the internationalized talents to be enhanced by education. The third, about the Singapore experience. So what we can borrow from Singapore to Hangzhou. Just like the former speakers has mentioned about the Singapore success. And all sitting here, maybe you don't know that Singapore in 1965 just became independent. The GDP per capita only like $500 in that year. But last century end, the per capita, that's $50,000 per capita. The toppest per capita GDP income. So what's the example for that, which means the talents are very crucial. no natural resources in Singapore. The only resource it got is talents. That's all about the strategy, implementation of strategy from the government. A lot of resources, a lot of effort, time is put, and policies were encouraged. In 2015, like Henry Wang and I has published a book about the practices of Singapore. The book has described about several features of talents in Singapore, including about top-level design. The very leaders of Singapore have designed such a structure of how to recruit talents in Singapore. In that, and also mainly international talents is very emphasized in the structure, including about localization of talents, the local talents to be promoted for all the aspect of talent development, centered on economic development for the talents. A very goal it aimed at in different stages, different implementations, different changes, different emphasis. In 21st century beginning, mainly for the biopharmacies technology were the key. In the past 2 years, Singapore is developing about AI, big data, and to put that as emphasis. The talents in these fields become very emphasis, a focus for them to recruit, to attract. Not only about the introducing into Singapore, but also about assure that combination. 5.7 million population, 1/3 is foreign people in Singapore. How we can assure that the foreign people in Singapore can assure that they can integrate into Singapore society to contribute more the government from the policies, resources, including about all the measures. They have a lot of very successful experience to share. They emphasize a lot about capability, about the cultural change, about integration between the talents, foreign talents and local people. Just like Bruno has mentioned about in Singapore, the intellectual property and also the competitiveness of talents, Singapore are ranking high. And also for the World Economy Forum, the Singapore also like a top 3 for economic performance. So for development of the Singapore, the talents strategy are playing crucial role in that. The second part I would like to say for technology innovation, education, how it can be integrated, including the role, just like discussion, the former speaker, the first speaker, Chen has mentioned that Deng Xiaoping, after he come back to the political domain, like he, as a statesman, he mentioned about technology and education, the very important integration, like Deng has mentioned. Singapore's development at the very beginning, including about our Nanyang Technological University in 1991 founded. The ranking of university is very top for academy field. The very crucial is that how we emphasize on the university development, the education development, and to have integration with economy development as well as for national strategy. During the whole process, we emphasized a lot on introducing of the international talents, such like our Sweden, were our former president were Sweden, and also the Europe Science Commission chair, the former chair. And now we are India, America president in our school. That he is also the chair of USA Science Fund chair. And we have 30,000 students, 8,000 staff for teachers. And for the teachers and also for the co-workers working this part, faculty, half of them are from outside of Singapore. So you can see that education and science education, very crucial integration. The engine is driven from international talents. So we think the recruitment of talents is not only about recruiting in Singapore, but facing the whole planet to recruit the best talents as our faculty, to recruit the best teacher, the best researchers, to produce the papers, to cultivate our students, and to facilitate integration between all the fields, academy, production, and manufacturing. During the whole process with the China enterprises, we also conduct cooperation, including Alibaba, the institute. We co-found the research centers. And last year, I visited Hangzhou, visited the Vice Governor Qian last year, and we were discussing about how to enhance the very cooperation between the very zones in Hangzhou and our Nanyang University. I think that the combination, integration, the science, development, and talents is a very important, crucial part, the cause for success. The third part, I think the appearance of Singapore for Hangzhou. The first about the differences for the environment background. You cannot copy the Singapore style. But development of Singapore, the very feature is that it's a city country, it's a city nation. As a city, as a country, you can learn from the city of Singapore. That's why in the past several years with Zhejiang, Hangzhou, we have a lot of cooperation, including in Hangzhou, we have built up a Singapore-Hangzhou Science Zone, and Singapore-Zhejiang governors are cooperating and communicating on how to cooperate. Three aspects, to be specific, appearance you can take away. The first is that how we can ensure the hard power and soft power can be combined, integrated. The hard power means the whole city's physical development, the traffic, the living environment. Singapore and Hangzhou is similar. And I think that they have been doing really good on that part. For the soft, the policies, implementation, for the soft and hard, integration can be very crucial to drive the Singapore to success. The second I would like to say is that how we can ensure that the home and abroad talents can be integrated. Very important, just like Hangzhou are supposed to build a world-class innovation center. How we can ensure that such innovation centers, the measures can be introduced into introducing the international talents is very important. Last point I would like to say is that how we can ensure the technology innovation as a very driving engine to ensure that Hangzhou can be the very pilot zones or the hub for the Asia and whole China, like Alibaba, Tencent, like the ByteDance, all these major Chinese enterprises are setting the headquarters offices in Singapore. The very crucial is that Singapore has such a very hub center as networking role there, especially for a very important point to attracting the talents. That's my suggestions. And if I say something not correct, you can correct me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Liu. I think those are key points about integrating hard power and soft power, and also that each city or country in your case has a unique situation and has to find its own solutions. Now we turn to CCG's own Mike Liu Hong. He's a senior fellow at CCG and also vice president of the China Global Talent Society. Mike has a long work history in the computer business. He has been the head of both Infosys China and DXC China, so he's got a lot of experience in the real world recruiting good people and trying to succeed by recruiting good people. So Mike, thank you very much.
谢谢各位，非常感谢，非常。
Thank you so much. I have learned a lot in this morning and in the whole day. Every time I visited Hangzhou, from government point and from the CCG's point, I would like to share about my view. Because time limited, I would like to share with you about 3 aspects. The first, mainly about for talents angles, we need to be comprehensively to select the talents. We think that all talents development in the city, the talents are very important. Not only about big data, computer, cloud computation, or machine learning. The most crucial, just like this morning, for UNESCO has shared with us about soft power in this morning, about global vision, about critical thinking, analysis, as well as COVID-19, social responsibility, and all these interactions are very crucial. I think that for all these aspects, especially for Hangzhou, how we can assure such an ecosystem can be developing, and how we can take full use of such a very key aspect and to consider comprehensively is very crucial. Second, I think, just like Yachin has mentioned, for how many doctors, how many academics, I think that we also need to notice that there are some potential talents. It's like triangle. Like I've been visiting Bangalore for such a city. A lot of gathering of talents actually is like the triangle. The cost about the skills and the connections. Only through that part of angle, so we can form a very training and skills training improvement application of that skills. And for China, especially, a lot of people has made a very progress. Next step, we need to consider how we can ensure that the long-term view, especially for the talents, we have 3 stages. First, about how we introduce talents. For the policies, encouragement, very important. Second is that how we can ensure that the talents can stay here, the ecosystem. I heard intel about a museum, like people want to live here, about living status, about culture, feature, and for our family members, and for the future, our children, education, and that's very crucial. The third part, especially for something may not be mentioned, and for all the talents, how we can ensure they can grow. And like the dot can be growing into the very plane. The dot can be growing into the whole plate. Like the leaders were located in Singapore or Hong Kong. The taxes in Hong Kong and Singapore are very less, and China learning very fast. Hainan, Iceland, and in the personal income, also we have a lot of tax priority to ensure the talents and headquarters can be introducing. The first we are drawing inside, another part we are pushing them to develop. So to conclude, for the talents development, if we can consider about introducing to let them stay, to let them grow, and from a long-term, full angle consideration, I think that no matter for Hangzhou and for the Delta area, for talent training education, that would be very helpful and very sustainable. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mike. You're a big tech talent yourself, so we'd be interested in knowing about your location decisions and what attracted you to various places when you have the opportunities to live around in many countries around the world. Now we turn to Mr. Lu Jian. He is the president of LinkedIn China, and he's fully responsible for LinkedIn's business and R&D in China. In the past, he has been a partner for many education firms, remote education firms, companies that do business in, he's been a leader in companies that do business in film and television, lots of work on multimedia, and all that requires a lot of talent attraction. He has a bachelor's degree in engineering from Hangzhou Zhejiang University. And
对，谢谢对，我是林英中国
Okay,
王延平，
thank
可能这个嘉宾的信息有一些调整，特别感谢这位精彩的主持。
I'm from LinkedIn in China, and some adjusting of the orders. Thank you so much for introduction, and I would like to thank you so much for introduction. I would like to share with you about 3 aspects, and to use the data to facilitate about the policies, especially for this today. We have education partners coming here. Last session, like I've heard about the Hangzhou digital talents has very strength here. It has around 40 million of samples of the talents. And also World Bank has related about skills measurement about talents indexes in Hangzhou. No matter about the talents, that's very strength here in Hangzhou. Just like the professor has mentioned about the Hangzhou situation. And for the smart level and for the digital level is even beyond Shanghai and Beijing. For the data-driven policies, mainly to assure that the people can have pay more attention, take to heart about the skills. The skills different from the education skills. It's different from the profession in the school, or the major in the school. It's different from the position. The skills are totally independent data. And through that person-to-person communication, to some extent, we have kind of blockchain conception, like we will understand about the very skill landscape of a whole place, and to train the skills instead of to train for the professions or the majors. Just like people has mentioned about like digital technology, we need to consider about such a very dimensions. And to talk about this, we think that last month, especially Henry and CCG with their instruction guideline, another research for Chinese, we need to get around 10 universities and all the very development of the aluminum, like all the graduates from that school about like which major they are working in, to ensure that the trend can be analyzed, especially for the students, to let them to understand like whether they can apply what they learned in the school can in their future positions and careers. We hope that for the future in the universities, so in that way we can bridge better between the universities and their future positions. In that way they can learn more effectively, and also the enterprises can have better bridging between them and the enterprises. That's why we call it data-driven. Another part for competitiveness, we would like to say that we need to tell a good story. How we can ensure that the story can be told. In Hangzhou, we have very good examples. For other places, they don't know about the story in Hangzhou. No matter about innovative stories, development, and process, there are a lot of good examples in Hangzhou. And Hausman in Silicon Valley, he is working on the Silicon Valley. He got a book, the scaling and the like thunder way of growth, and the very book in the internet, and has a very impact on the talent growth in China, has very innovative, very potential. So we know that Zhejiang province in China has always the story of a potential growth of business and growth of the stories of growth of business, growth of the enterprises. We can tell the good story about the growth of businesses as a very important center for commerce. And we can connect the cities between it and the other cities to assure that people can know that and to create, to innovate. Another part I would like to talk about the very generosity of the city or the mindset of the city. Just like the former speaker has mentioned of the pandemic, we have, especially for impact and for about impact on the students, just like people has mentioned about the pandemic, we use Zoom, we use the team to help them to improve their productiveness. And in this way, I believe that all the panelists, we know that in the past 1 year, a lot of graduate students has been curbed. A lot of classes has been turned into the online classes. They have been impacted a lot negatively. You know that, especially for the changes of positions, such like the virus, pandemic related about skill acquiring, and also development of industry, and which industry, especially given that pandemic impact, can be developing very cross-border, and which positions they are learning the new skills. We need to have more data analysis to ensure that students know about the risk and to get a future job. And our LinkedIn platform are working on this part for this time and for this very platform, and through such a very platform to ensure that the students and the newcomers, while they feel puzzled, and through the LinkedIn platform to find that their seniors like 1 or 2 hours to answer all the students, especially for the same major or maybe like the senior graduates. And in that way, we can help the students to learn from each other, to avoid the risk and to have a better distribution. And I'm talking about the minds or the generosity of the city, and it's mainly about in the soft mind of the Hangzhou, we can have advantage in this part. Thank you so much. As my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting observations. The thing that really struck me is your phrase of the need to form a bridge between the schools and enterprises, and also the phrase of generosity of the city. Those are things we should pursue further in thinking about how a city develops and how it builds its capabilities. Next, we turn to Professor Tan Qingzhong. He is the Executive Vice President and a professor at Schwarzman College of Tsinghua University. Excuse me, just a second. He received his bachelor's degree through his PhD at Tsinghua University and also did a master's degree at Stanford. He's done a lot of work on corporate governance, on the Belt and Road Initiative, and on many other issues. So, Professor Pan, we're looking forward to your discussion.
Good afternoon, good morning, good night, depending on different places. Thanks a lot for Henry. Very good work it has done, and a very top ranking for the CCG. And every people has give a very sum up for CCG. 40 years ago, like Nixon came to Hangzhou. It's a very beautiful West Lake, beautiful city. And Nixon said it's like a junk city 40 years ago, beautiful lake. If 40 years later, if Nixon came here again, and he will not say like that. It's beautiful city and beautiful lake instead of beautiful lake and a junk city. So I would like to talk about one point about government, and we need to do about soft power, the service, information, and the policy need to have integration between the market and talents. About the taxes is very important. The service-centered government, I think that the Hangzhou is really good. I'm working in government. Some people are serving me really good information about communication, sharing information, communication. like such a event is mainly about information sharing. And for such a communication platform, it will be must be very important vigor embodiment of the whole city. Vigor is mainly about like any sunshine can make you grow very fast, and any small rain can make you growing happily. So it's like about vigor, just like people has mentioned for and Yachin, Yanping, and all has mentioned about the numbers, and the former speaker has mentioned about the quantity and quality is all important. Like I want to buy something. Like all the academics, like who gonna serve for you? We need multi-layer. Everybody is academics. Like how are you gonna get served? And what about other roles? We need multi-role there to run the city. We need colorful talents. We need to diversify the talents instead of like top-level talents. Not only numbers is helpful for the quality. Quality is helpful for guarantee the quantity, and for the talents, the top one Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, then Hangzhou about talents ranking. That's ranked by our foreign expert, because they think that Shanghai is the best for the talents, because most of the talents are working in Shanghai. But they didn't visit Hangzhou maybe. So if they visited Hangzhou, will be top 3, not top 4. But in past 10 years, Hangzhou has very good attractiveness. We need to ensure that Hangzhou can have such an element. That I would like to say 3 points. Now I have used 3.5 minutes. I will add a few more points. Hangzhou and Zhejiang, every time I visited here, I always got a pity for here. When I saw Zhejiang province population, the land equal to Korea, to South Korea, even a bigger population to South Korea. Our GDP per capita is like half compared to South Korea for Zhejiang. 300 university in South Korea, but we have only 100 here in the province of Zhejiang. So still we think that we have a lot of things to catch up, a lot of huge potential here. But we have made a lot of advance, like 4 times compared with 10 years ago. And now maybe like 10 years ago, we are 1/4 compared to South Korea, and now we are 1/2 compared to South Korea. I hope that in the future 10 years we can catch up. And people talk about paradise is like paradise on earth, and we compare Hangzhou with paradise. So it's Chinese old saying goes: you want to live here in Hangzhou, and I believe that people will come to Hangzhou to live, to work. Our best wishes from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think your points about vigor, that's a very interesting concept. It'd be interesting to know how to develop an index for the vigor of a city and the vigor of a region. I also was very interested in your comparison with South Korea. It'd be interesting to follow up that with another study. Our final speaker today, apart from a video, is Wang Dazong. He's the chairman of the Global Automotive Elite Council and also chairman of Alphonics Capital Management. He has worked for General Motors for many years. He was the China country manager, and then he was vice president of SAIC in Shanghai and became president and CEO of Beijing Automotive Industry Corporation. And what's most striking looking at his resume is that in 3 years, from 2007 to 2010, he increased BAIC's profit by 700%. So, Mr. Wang, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, David. 我是第一次来参加这种人才方面的专业会议啊，是挺忐忑的。
First time for me to join such a talent summit. I'm not working in the very talent field, and because I'm not professional working this part. I can only share between myself and you about my own experience and my observation here. Like you mentioned about the very talented highland building. It's very good information. And like 40 years ago, coming from Cornell University in USA, I've been working automobile sector for the whole life. Like since 1981, I visited in USA. I went to USA and staying in USA for 20 years. And after that, I stayed here between China and USA for following 30 years. You think about that, the first batch of students came to USA, like such impact, like we have closed the market for 30 years. Then I went to USA, like Cornell University. They all coming from 130 countries, students, and the professors coming from all the different countries, and Nobel winners, laureates, and artists. And every week we have all diversified of lectures, and students are learning from a very diversified environment. Think about information sharing, such a volume quality information in that places, especially for USA. It's not only about design curriculum, it's not about the very professors level. It's mainly about the very international highland. For talents, 40 years ago, for me, that's so impressive to say such a very structure of talents in that university. I would like to offer my suggestions for Hangzhou for building a highland for talents. We can play the role for the association and society. If you notice that automobiles in the past 20 years have such a fast growth development, while I went to USA 1981, only 7,000 for China, and now we got around 30 million cars in China, vehicles in China. Such a growth and for the auto numbers and also quality improvement a lot, and 50% made in China for autos, and for the 40% for the cars made in China. So such a very major growth, which is very relevant to talents internationally. So all the very manufacturers has very diversified structure. The best manufacturers has diversified talents, and most are returning from abroad to China, or we have other like foreign talents working in the country, working in the manufacturing centers. The association society playing a very important role, like the Global Automobile Association, the Elite Center Association. We are working with Japan, with Europe, working with the other places. We are building such association, a society. We are organizing all the different kind of very major events, discuss about common issues and discussing about very major problems. Very important facilitation for talents distribution, talents drawing. One city are taking the tools really well. And appearance we can draw from them. Shanghai, Jiading district of Shanghai. It was named as Jiading Zone, but now was named as Jiading district. One small district has 840 billion for such a very auto sector value. You think about 9D, such a power in such a small district of Shanghai city, because the high tax and high yielding for that autos, and every city wants to take the auto as a very major industry, because auto has a very high yielding of tax, high yielding of the value. Jiading are playing a very important role, association, society, and other associations like including about the auto associations are organizing a lot of industry event or international event. In that way, the international talents can understand about this place and to know about this place. And time limited, I hear very important keywords about ecosystem. And Lee has mentioned about a natural ecosystem. And I'm returning from abroad myself. And I'm working as a very major state-owned corporation of automobiles as a very leader, and I'm working especially as a very major General Motors as a very leader. In 2008, I am working as a very general manager president of Beijing Autos, like 500 billion market value as a very major corporation. And today, maybe some people cannot take a return from abroad as a very leader for state-owned enterprises. I think that we should also put the returned people as a president, continue to do that. If people ban the returned from abroad to be the president of state-owned enterprises, that would be not right. We need to have a very open mind to ensure that any people can run the state corporation. And 45% of the tax. And now we are working like very important tax from the other chain of the auto sector from other places of the globe, planet. That would be very damaged if we have such a high tax for the whole chain for auto sector. Another part is mainly about culture, ecosystem. We want to attract more talents. We cannot use Google. We cannot use VPN. We cannot use YouTube. We cannot use all these very tools because I've used that for scores of years. I come to China, I cannot use that for the talents. I think that I want to have more connection on internet. So very specific questions, and that's my suggestions or the thoughts or sharing here. I think all the leaders, government, if you really honestly want to attract the talents, you should listen to my points. And last, I would like to say, not least, we need to attract young talents. If we want to draw young talents from abroad, there's very challenge. They cannot stay in China forever. They cannot live here as an elder, taken care. In Singapore, they can work elderly. They can work as a senior. They can work like even as a very old man. They can still live there. But in China, it's really hard to live in China till old. Still in China, really hard. Have a long path ahead. Only 5 minutes for me. I'm not sure if I have talk too much on this part. That's my sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. I think your points about the key importance of openness to return people is a key point that requires a lot more further thought. And also your example of multinational corporations and China's openness to MNCs is another point that we should think about much further. Finally, today, we have a presentation from Professor Martin Geiger of Carleton University, who could not be with us. He's on a flight from Germany to China at this time. So he recorded a previous video to give his input into our discussion today. Professor Geiger has done a lot of work on migration, on the importance of diasporas, and both in Europe and in the United States and in other areas. So let's turn to Professor Geiger's video. Well, we seem to be delayed for a minute. I just want to ask any of the speakers if you would like to comment while we're waiting for Professor Geiger's video to come online on any of the points that have been made. comment quickly.
Perhaps I could maybe 我可以讲一下，因为这个时间关系啊，可能那个
time is limited. May we do not play the Martin's video, because we still have other agenda to go to other places. And I would like to draw a conclusion. And we do not play the video, because we need to follow the agenda. And today is really a good event. Like 20 experts and from home and abroad in Hangzhou uses online and offline connections. We have invited. We have Mr. Lavine, Professor Lavine, and also we have our David Blair. Thank you so much for being with us. With such a very communication, the first half a session for moderating, and very good speeches, and we have very expert from China. We have the expert of the talent management as well as for science bureau, Tsinghua University, and for enterprises, and also LinkedIn, including about Huawei enterprises. Very good communication today, very thought-provoking. Like Liu Hong has mentioned about Singapore appearance, we can learn from. And Hangzhou has similar population with Singapore, and why not catch up with Singapore, and why not catch up with Singapore, or why not learn from them? There are possibilities there. I hope that can become like a reality. And today's event is a very good example. We have all the different angles, different observations, and we should enhance further communication and to have more collaboration between all the partners, including about Professor Liu Hong. And all sitting here, a very good speeches you have delivered offline. Our Tsinghua University, Zhang Yachin, and Tan Qingzhong, and Wang Dazong, Yan Ping. Very good examples, very good speeches, like you have offered very ideas. Especially we have very famous talents management expert, including Li Zhijun, Wu Zhang, and our Minister Zhang. He's still with us here. And thank you so much for the support and for discussion on the talents. I would like to offer my ideas for Hangzhou to share with that. First is mainly about development of talent building. We need to enhance more on tourism. In the past several years, for the past 12 years, come to China to visit, still at the level Olympic Games level. And we have a lot of people go to abroad to tour, to be as a tourist, but still not too much foreigners come here to have a tourism here. So basically that only 20 million come to China to have a visit. And because the environment of internet or the environment of the hardware, if we can enhance more, to draw more to visit Hangzhou, to let them to have a sightseeing, the first they can see the sights, beautiful here, and then they would be willing to stay here. Another part for international organizations, Beijing, Shanghai, I think that Hangzhou can attract more international organizations. It can be very important. Like Beijing has some and Shanghai has some, but Hangzhou are lacking such international organizations. Zhang Yachin said that the pandemic changed our way of working. About the Microsoft or the Amazon working in home, and efficiency and the productiveness even higher compared with the offline work. We believe that the trend will continue. And for the near future, Hangzhou, maybe people have a tourism here, have a sightseeing here. They can work remotely for Hangzhou. And for online, join the talents, maybe through the online way or virtual talents from abroad. Maybe that will be a trend. Online, offline combination, like for a new way of the talents attraction. 50% of digital economy proportion, and we can attract more virtual working talents. So we can offer them like the green card for working remotely. Maybe that will be a very trend or very direction. If we can explore as a pioneer, we may get a dividend very soon. Like Great China, Liu Hong is in charge of that. Especially India, we're working outsourcing, very low version of such a very remote working, and take full use of India talents and combination with China. And now we can use a virtual way. And today is like innovation. Now we have the Zoom online, we have physically Zoom. We connect all the talents and in online, offline. Thank you so much for contribution. Thank you so much for the government support talents department of Hangzhou. And thank you so much for all your engagement, and thank you for being with us. And a minister is still with us. Thank you so much for Blair Lavine. Thank you so much for being with us. And we will have a very conclusion on everybody's speeches to offer very clear suggestions to Hangzhou, Zhejiang province. We will give them big contribution for the government. Thank you so much. We need to follow the agenda. Thank you again. And the 7th China Talent 50 Forum, Hangzhou, following Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Chengdu. That's the 5th city we have been here hosting as a hosting place. Thank you again, and very resultful session. Thank you for all the audiences, especially for Zhejiang, Hangzhou, all the experts for being with us. Thank you. That's the end of this session. Thank you. And that's the end of the session. We will depart.